may not be suitable for all audiences.
Is it time to watch Beaver Tracks yet?
Well, just about. We have here another professor, and this is the professor of
Art.
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Scholars, welcome back to another episode of Art 101 with me, Mr. Burgher. I'm a professional artist, I'm a master educator, and I'm here to try to provide you with the best in art historical content. If you like the content now, make sure you like, share, subscribe, interact, share it with your buddies, your pals, your neighbors, like-minded individuals. It helps me out a lot, and I appreciate you. Now, over the years, there are many art exhibitions that would change the direction of art history. The art exhibitions that were put on by the Impressionists were right in line with that philosophy. Today, we're going to take a look at the fifth of 8 art exhibitions that were put on by the Impressionists, and so let's jump into that topic right away. Alright friends, so before we can get too far into the 5th Impressionist exhibition, we've got to first talk a little bit about the 4th exhibition. Trying to catch you up to speed just a little bit, there is lots and lots of drama around the people, but in the end of the day, it was a success and there were profits that were shared amongst the artists that were involved. Artists like Claude Monet that were on the fence ended up coming back into the show, and artists like Renoir left for the salon. So now the table is set for the 5th Impressionist Art Show, which would take place on April the 1st through April the 30th, 1880. One of the major points that they had to try to figure out was where this show was going to take place. Now, typically they're around the end of May, the early April, in all of these shows, and they continue with that again the 1st of April, but trying to find a venue that they could go to was somewhat difficult, so they ended up going into a mezzanine of an unfinished building, at that time the outskirts of Paris.
It's all right. I'm not supposed to be here either. I take it you're not.
Camilo Pizarro and Edgar Degas were pretty much focused as leadership in the group on the fact that they wanted outside artists that were wanting to work outside the salon system. A direct quote from Pizarro was, "We want artists with the firm will to deviate from the official." But the show was becoming less and less actually impressionist. They were trying to get more artists involved that were more decorative with sculptures and things like that. And they're wanting the show to move in a direction of becoming more and more decorative. Now in the past, they've done this by adding printmaking and sculptures and fan paintings and all these other things that they had done in the past, but they're doing that even to a larger degree in 1880. We see more and more etchings, we see more and more of an influence by Degas getting his buddies involved. And for an artist like Pizarro, who relied 100% on the sale of his artwork and paintings for his livelihood, it was a financial sacrifice for him to continue down a path with the Impressionists, knowing that it would be less and less the types of people that would actually buy his works. And there were artists like Caillebotte who would financially help him out by helping pay the bills and whatnot so that he could continue to make art for the group. And with him making that type of work for the group, the overall feel of the Impressionist Art Exhibition was becoming more and more about independent artists than it was about any form of Impressionism. And so there was kind of this double-edged sword which really didn't help him out on either side.
Only sometimes I withhold things, for human beings cannot bear too much reality.
Generally speaking, the public and critics both felt that Impressionist work was still a bit of an unfinished art. It had very little vision to it, and in 1880, Claude Monet decided that he was no longer going to participate, and he went on to the salon. And without the leader of the Impressionists participating in an Impressionist show, how could they call it an Impressionist show at all? Not only did Monet decline to participate and move to the Salon, but so did Paul Cézanne, Alfred Sisley, and Pierre-Auguste Renoir. These major contributors to the exhibition leaving and defecting from that show very much put a blemish on the Impressionist exhibition. Now, who knows why they all decided to leave? They all had their own rationale behind it. But for Monet, I think one of the leading reasons of logic that he pursued a path toward the Salon as opposed to staying with the Impressionist show was, number one, he didn't really care too much about Degas and his opinions and the direction that he was taking the group. But also, the Salon had implemented a new rule in 1880. The new rule was if you had past acceptances into the official Salon, you automatically got one piece into the show. Now, Monet had had previous experience having his work accepted in 1865, 1866, and 1868. So he knew 100% that he would have at least one work in the show. And of all of the works that he had submitted for acceptance, only one got in. So it worked that he got into the show, but it also was a bit of shooting himself in his own foot because he really only got one piece out to be seen by the public in those shows instead of having multiple pieces in the Impressionist show. But be that as it was, his feeling that Degas was taking the group in a direction where Degas felt like he was bringing in fresh talent and very divisive from the Impressionist message, which was central to the whole idea. And as we follow the Impressionist shows, we'll see this becoming more and more a theme that comes up again and again. But Degas was taking the group in the direction that he felt was the best, where he was getting more and more people, new faces involved, but he saw Monet's betrayal in leaving to go to the Salon as something that he could not forgive, and he completely severed ties for a long period of time with Monet, despite the ideas and the lack of follow-through on the part of Degas, in particular with this show. What I mean by that is specifically the newspaper.
We can't lose our personal responsibility to drill down on our own and read shit.
So in the fourth show, they started to experiment with printing and things like that, and the idea was brought up by Mary Cassatt. Why not have some form of a newspaper that you could distribute to people so they could learn about the art and the artists and what they were doing, as opposed to just walking in and seeing a bunch of artwork? And they thought, well, what a great idea. Let's develop a bit of a newspaper to promote the show and the works that were developed within the show. So Degas was basically in charge, with Cassatt being the helping hand in the project. It was to be called The Day and the Night, and The Day and the Night never really saw the light of day. Not to be too punny about it, but it didn't. The writing didn't follow through, the printing didn't follow through, the money didn't follow through, nothing followed through. The deadlines came and went, mostly to the ball dropping of Edgar Degas. Now, in a private letter sent from Mary Cassatt's mother to another family member, she had stated this, and I quote, "Degas is never ready for anything. This time he has made them all miss a great opportunity." Keep in mind, Degas and Mary Cassatt were pretty tight. They were pretty good friends at this time, and this very much put a strain on their friendship. They worked together and painted together and gave advice back and forth, and then came a little bit of another slap in the face, depending upon your perspective or how you look at it, when Degas was developing the posters and print material that were going to actually be distributed around to promote the show. Degas had struggled with Caillebotte on whether or not they would put the names on the poster. At the end of the day, they decided that the names of the artists would go on to the poster. But in the end, the women's names, there were 3 women in the show, and none of their names were on the poster. Now, Degas says that he didn't put the names on there to protect them because it would be unethical for women to be using their names as a promotional poster for an art group. Some people say that Mary Cassatt, Bertha Morisot, and Mary Brocquemond were entering the show too late to have their name included, or they made the decision on their own not to have their names on that promotional material, even though in the 4th exhibition they had the names on the show, and Mary Cassatt's name is as clear as day on the promotional poster, but whatever. But there are individuals that will argue that Degas was a known misogynist who was in charge of the poster, and he may very well have just made the decision not to put their names on it because he didn't want women to be included on it, and he could make that decision without any questions asked. So I don't know.
Yo, man, they perpetrators, man, the whole nine, man, they real fake, kid.
But speaking of the exhibition, there were 19 members included with over 200 works on display in this space, and those artists that were represented include Felix Bracamond, Mary Bracamond, Gustave Caillebotte, Mary Cassatt, Edgar Degas, Jean-Louis Ferrain, Paul Gauguin, Armand Guillemin, Albrecht Lebrun, Jean-Baptiste Leopold Levert, Bertha Morisot, Camilo Pizarro, Jean-François Raffaelli, J.M. Raffaelli, Henri Rouart, Charles Victor Telot, Eugene Vincent Vidal, Victor Vignon, Federico van der Medici. Side note, interestingly enough, Monet and Renoir were the only Impressionists that left the show that would be accepted into the salon.
Yes, you do you, I do me, okay? Where did you get this guy?
He just showed up one day.
Considered the Caillebotte exhibition, this 5th Impressionist Art Exhibition, although guided in the right direction by Gustave Caillebotte and Mary Cassatt and Bertha Morisot, the disruptions by Edgar Degas just couldn't be overcome. I mean, he promised to bring work that he failed to follow through with. He promised to create this newspaper-type pamphlet thing that never got developed. He was bringing in his protege artists that were making the show less impressionist and more what he thought it should be, and that created more of a conflict between him and Caillebotte. And Caillebotte would definitely see Degas as the problem by pushing out Monet and all of the other Impressionist heavy hitters. You know, people that came to view the show were largely indifferent. They weren't excited about going like they had the previous year, and they didn't mock it like they did the first year. It wasn't hot or cold, it was just stagnant, and that's the worst place to be. And so it was largely a disappointment to all people that were involved. Side note, although not as popular as past exhibitions, it was not without its individuals that attended. For example, 19-year-old Paul Signac, who would go on to become a great post-impressionist painter, was removed by Paul Gauguin for creating a drawing replica of a Degas painting.
I don't think so. Homie, don't play that.
It was less popular because of the location. It was less popular because of the buzz around it. It was less popular because of the turnover of artists. It was less popular from the critics' point of view. It was just all around not really a great show for the Impressionists, and we will see this slow, steady decline as we get to the 6th Impressionist Art Show that we will talk about more next time. So stay tuned for that upcoming content. And I hope that you appreciate getting that content as much as I love bringing it to you. You have yourself a great day, and we'll see you next time.
I don't want to hear any more of this stupidity.